Hey there, students. Let's talk about impeachment for a little bit. Now, I read this evening that House Speaker Nancy Pelosi has announced that the House of Representatives is going to launch an official impeachment inquiry into President Donald Trump. This is something that's only happened 3 times, okay? It's happened for Andrew Johnson, Richard Nixon, and Bill Clinton. Now, of course, Richard Nixon resigned before any of that took effect, but we have had a couple of presidents that have been impeached, and every once in a while in United States history, this happens, okay? But everybody's thinking, oh, is Trump going to finally get impeached? Is Trump going to finally get impeached? And it looks like there's a good chance that he will be, okay? That when you start looking at everything, what it looks like what happened here is that allegedly, President Trump was on the phone with the president of Ukraine. And as he was talking to the president of Ukraine, he was saying, why don't you investigate Joe Biden's son? Why don't you investigate Joe Biden's son? I'd really like it if you investigate Joe Biden's son. Investigating someone who is connected with a political adversary. And on top of this, there was a package of $400 million in military aid for Ukraine. Not sure if it was military, but it's aid to Ukraine. And Ukraine's been invaded by Russia, okay? So in some form or fashion, this is $400 million to a country that has been illegally invaded. And the United States has a treaty obligation to assist in this kind of situation, even though we haven't really been doing that according to the treaty obligations that we have. But that's another story. And the thing is that this $400 million aid package was put on hold. And then eventually it was released. So is there some kind of connection between Donald Trump's request for the president of Ukraine to investigate Joe Biden's son and the holding, however temporarily, of this aid to Ukraine? And if there's sufficient evidence for this, Trump should be impeached, okay? He should be. Now, and he probably will be unless this just ends up just blowing up and having nothing to it. Now, here's the other part here. So when you're wondering, is Trump going to be impeached? Well, there's a chance that he will be. I would say at this point, a good chance, but here's the kicker. If you're an American and you're breathing, you probably have no idea what impeachment is. And so that's where we need to give a little friendly reminder, okay? So I've got a video about the Senate and the House and the powers that the Senate and the House both have. Now, right now, President Trump's a Republican, and the House is controlled by the Democratic Party. Meanwhile, the Senate is controlled by the Republican Party. So the House, it's the House's responsibility to draft articles of impeachment. That's part of our bicameral legislature and the whole idea of separation of powers within the legislative branch. So the House can draft up articles of impeachment, which is essentially, if you were to compare this to a criminal proceeding, this would be like an indictment, okay? So it's not a conviction. It's just saying that, look, we have some charges to bring up against the president, and we would like for there to be a trial. And so the House, which is controlled by the Democrats, could very well vote to impeach President Trump. Now remember, Andrew Johnson and Bill Clinton have been impeached. Neither one was removed from office. So that's the big thing here, that to impeach a president is not to remove that president from office. So there's the other part. Then impeachment goes over to the Senate, which is controlled by the Republican Party. 53 Republicans to 47 Democrats, 45 Democrats and 2 independent Democratic caucusers, but who's counting, right? And what has to happen here, while the House only has to have a majority to submit the articles of impeachment to the Senate, in order for the president to be removed from office, it takes a 2/3 vote of the Senate. So it's not just that 4 Republicans would have to defect, it would have to be 20 Republicans defecting. And that's just not going to happen, okay? 20 out of 53 Republicans. When you think about this, I mean, even Alexander Hamilton wrote that, look, this process is going to become politicized because everything's going to be political. So even if there's a Republican senator who thinks, well, President Trump deserves to be removed from office, imagine going back to Arkansas. And shout out to Arkansas High School, AC and Maddie and all of you people over there. Love y'all. So with that, going back to Arkansas and explaining to your constituents that you voted to remove the God Emperor from office. That's just not going to happen. That politically, it's just not going to happen. Now, the other thing here, aside from politics, there's the whole issue of plausible deniability, that certainly there should be an investigation about what was the connection between Trump's alleged request to have Joe Biden's son investigated and this aid package of $400 billion. And as far as that goes, there's always going to be some element of plausible deniability, so Republicans can say, oh, there doesn't seem to be a connection here. Now, remember also that both Bill Clinton and Andrew Johnson survived impeachment, even though the Senate at that time was controlled by the other party. So this would be the first time that there ever would be an impeachment trial in a Senate that is controlled by the president's own party, which I was just reading. The Senate could really just kind of summarily dismiss this, perhaps. This is really not something that's going to result in removal from office. So remember, when somebody asks, is Trump going to be impeached? Quite possibly. Is Trump going to be removed from office? Not a chance. At least not over this. It's kind of like in 2016 where Trump, when he was campaigning, he said he could just walk up to somebody and shoot him in the middle of the street and his supporters would still love him. Well, he's not wrong. Okay, so as far as that goes, just not going to happen. So glad that we could clarify that, and it's always good to have a little reminder of what impeachment is. It is always a pleasure.